Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk to you about dividend royalty. We're not talking about queens, jacks, jokers, tens, or any other card in the deck. We are here to talk to you about Dividend Kings.
Smash that subscribe button. Give Bert and I a thumbs up as we talk to you about the who, the why, the what of the Dividend Kings and what makes them so different than a Dividend Aristocrat.
So first, before we start, let's just define what is a Dividend King. This is actually very simple. So everyone get out your notepads, get your pen and paper, get ready to write this down. A Dividend King is simply a company that has increased their dividend for over 50 consecutive years. Not 1 year, not 2 years, not 3 years, not 25 years. You heard me right, 50 consecutive years.
You know, thinking about our viewership, how many of you watching are even 50 years old? We know majority of our viewers are actually below the age of 38. And if you're above 50, do you remember that first increase that dividend paying company made? Maybe Coke, maybe J&J,
3M?
maybe.
Who knows? But if you do remember it, I bet it was a pretty exciting moment.
In addition, during this global pandemic, what better way to look at a dividend stock than the Dividend Kings list? As we've seen dividend cuts happen left and right, including the Warren Buffett recent discussion and move that he made on Dominion, ticker symbol D, we know that dividend cuts have been happening nonstop. So what better way to put your money than in a Dividend King who has relentlessly increased their dividend for 50 years and who would hate to break that dividend growth streak?
Yeah, I think that's a very important point, Lanny. If a company has increased their dividend for 50 consecutive years, let's think about some of the events that they've still managed to increase their dividend through. Some of them have increased their dividend through this pandemic alone, thinking of you, Johnson & Johnson and Procter & Gamble. All the other companies have increased their dividend through the global financial crisis, the dot-com bubble bursting, the S&L crisis in the 80s, the oil crises in the 70s. Think about that. These companies have demonstrated that they can continue increasing their payout through good times and bad.
We're talking the, toilet flushing on Zoom call time periods.
Yep.
The creation of the dividend diplomats, breaking the internet.
Yep.
There's been multiple big events, even the Cavs winning a title back in 2016.
Yeah.
Cleveland, this is for you.
That is a night I'll never forget.
That's right.
I can replay that night in my mind.
And dividend increases kept happening.
Yeah, although I don't think it'd be sweet if a company would have actually announced their dividend increase as LeBron was chasing down Iguodala and getting that block.
That's right. So, we wanted to provide just a little bit of background on what these companies have endured and why it matters to you as an investor. Now, not only, have we already mentioned a few names, but if you remember in our top 5 foundation stocks for your portfolio, not only were those Dividend Aristocrats, but there's actually 2 names in there that were Dividend Kings or are Dividend Kings. Bert, what's one of them at least?
Johnson & Johnson, ticker symbol J&J, old reliable.
Good old reliable.
What's the second one, Lanny?
Good friend PG, Procter & Gamble, the nice consumer-based goods company. So 2 long dividend stalwarts who both increased their dividend over 6% back in April.
Yeah, and those are just, again, some of them. I think there are about 30 Dividend Kings right now. Some of the other names on the list are 3M, one of my favorite dividend stocks. You have Genuine Parts Company. You have Cincinnati Financial, an insurance company that I've been buying. The insurance company is actually performing pretty well right now, and it's one of the industries we're suggesting you take a look at after the pandemic. And these are some of the big ones, but again, there are plenty of other massive, large cap companies in there.
Now, as a dividend investor, again, there's more of a, nothing ever is guaranteed or 100% secure, but these are more of your, lower risk profile entities where they just generate cash flow and they're pretty much cash cow type businesses that consumers consistently use on a day in and day out. Mm-hmm. Now, the question you may be asking yourself as a dividend investor, a beginner investor, or somebody who just wants to learn more is, what's the difference between a Dividend King and a Dividend Aristocrat?
Yeah, I think that's a huge question to answer because If you ask yourself, a Dividend Aristocrat has increased their dividend for 25 consecutive years, and a Dividend King has increased their dividend for 50 consecutive years, naturally, wouldn't all Dividend Kings also be Dividend Aristocrats?
The answer is actually no.
Yeah, the big differences are, besides for the number of years, our Dividend Aristocrats have a market cap minimum of $3 billion, and they are required to be on the S&P 500. So actually, the Dividend Kings list is inclusive of all dividend-paying companies.
Right. So you have your large companies and you have your small companies. Yeah. There are quite a few examples of small companies that are actually on the list that aren't quite in the S&P 500.
Yeah, there are a lot of water utility companies. Almost all of them are considered Dividend Kings. Lancaster Colony is one. They're an Ohio company as well, but yeah, they're not a Dividend Aristocrat. And ABM Industries is another example. So again, we'll put a resource link in our description to where you can find a listing of all the Kings, but those are some of the big ones to name a few.
Now, you really want to crown your portfolio as a dividend investor. So throughout the video here, we've been able to at least say what the Dividend Kings are, why they matter to you as a dividend investor, who from the names in the industries are on the list, big and small, as well as what are the differences between Dividend Kings and Dividend Aristocrats.
Yeah, and if you have any other questions, please leave them in the description and comments section below. We'll put some more resources in our description section, obviously. Lastly, just let us know how many Dividend Kings you own. I own about, I think, 6 or 7 of them. I know Lanny also owns a similar number. We'd love to hear which ones you own and why you invested in them.
So the question I'll leave you as a viewer is, are you ready to own a Dividend King and crown your dividend portfolio? And again, before you leave, give us a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button. This is Bert and Lanny from the Dividend Diplomats.
Over and out.